Hey everybody, I'm Evan.
And I'm Grayson.
And thank you again for joining us on this series on YouTube where we're counting down our top 3 games for every single letter of the alphabet.
Mm-hmm. And this week, it's the H's.
Yeah, H's. I think I picked out some good ones. You probably did too.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do it. Do you want to go first or me?
You.
Me, okay. I guess I'm going first again. My number 3 is a game that looks a lot like a kid's game, but it is definitely not a kid's game, but it's got super kid art. Can you guess what that is?
Is it Happy Pigs?
My number 3 is Happy Pigs. Yeah, so it's a rather complex economic game with like all these cute pigs on it, where you're basically building a farm. Mm-hmm. Well, you're stocking a farm full of pigs, where you have to feed the pigs, you have to grow the pigs, and then you have to sell the pigs.
Don't forget breeding them.
And breed the pigs. Yeah, well, breed more pigs. And you have a pen, and you're laying these pig tiles into the pen. And you have to simultaneously select an action, which is breed, feed, what?
Like
sell. Yeah. So everybody has
buy.
to buy, right? So everybody picks those simultaneously in secret, and then what you want to do is try to guess the one that everybody else isn't doing, because if you do, then you're splitting the action between you all. So if you can guess, you can buy more or you can breed more. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so then there's an economy that's constantly fluctuating the prices. So you have to sell at the right time, but not when everybody else is. Otherwise,
Yeah. So sometimes it's good to sell at the lower points than the higher points, because everyone will sell at those higher points compared to people that won't sell at those lower points.
Right, and because everybody else will be trying to sell it all at once. Yeah. So it's a thinky game where you got to try to figure out when to do these actions and when you think everybody else isn't going to do the actions. But it basically boils down to is growing pigs. So yeah, that's my number 3. It's a really fun game.
My number 3 is Hit Z Road.
Okay.
It's a really fun game where I guess you're driving around fighting zombies.
Basically, yeah.
Because it's Hit Zombie Road.
Well, it's weird because it's like a parody of a board game. It's like the story is like this kid who's on the run from the zombies found an old board game and turned it into a zombie board game. So all the components look like they're taken from other games. So what do you have to do in the game?
Basically you just have to get through everything and fight off the zombies so you don't die.
You do, but then there's like multiple locations, right?
Yeah.
And every player has to bid their supplies to get the first choice of which location they want to try, which path they want to go down, because some are really terrible.
And some of them are okay.
And some are not so bad. So but then you have to spend your resources to try to maybe get back not as many resources. So you have to be super stingy, right?
Because if you spend too much resources to go on that okay path, you may not still get through that okay path because you still don't have enough.
Right. So at its heart, it's still like a dice rolling game where you're rolling a certain amount of dice for every person that you have left in your party.
But also you can use those resources to help you up those die rolls and stuff.
Right. Right. But it's a tricky game of trying to last the longest. Because sometimes, it just doesn't work
because you're trying to get to the end.
You are.
And the people who get to the end, then they count the amount of points they have.
Right. The thing is, I don't think I've ever made it to the end.
I feel like I have, once.
Because usually everybody in my group just dies. So, yeah, that's a really fun game. Your number 3, Hit Z Road.
What's your number 2?
Okay, my number 2 is a little card game about planting herbs, and that's called Herbaceous. It's a super simple card game. It doesn't even really take that long to play. Where you have these 4 containers, like these herb containers in front of you. And you draw a card and you decide, does it go in my private garden, which only I can take from? Or does it go in the community garden where everybody can take from? And then after you make that decision, the next card has to either go in the opposite one. So if you're taking a card for yourself, the next one is going where everybody can grab it at any time. So then when you go to plant, you can take from the one in front of you that only you can grab from, and the one in the middle where anybody can grab from. But then there's a tension because you're thinking there's stuff in the middle that I want, but I need to make it last a little bit longer because the planters are all different. Like sometimes they need all different herbs, or sometimes they need pairs of herbs, or sometimes they need like all of the same herbs. So you're trying to build that up in front of you in your private garden, and in the middle in the community garden. So, and you're trying to get those things first before anybody else grabs them. But you want to have the supply like high, because you get more. The more you can do in your pots, the higher your points are going to be. So it's a really simple game. Herbaceous, my number 2.
Well, I mean, my number 2 is actually Happy Pigs.
Yeah, I knew you were going to pick that one.
So, yeah, as we said, it's a pretty fun, like, deceiving game, because it's like some super cute little art, but it's actually pretty thinky on what you're gonna do. And also, like, sometimes you have to organize your pigs, like, or like there's expansions with other animals in it.
Yeah, we have like all the expansions and promos, which has like ducks and penguins, and but they still function the same as the pigs. They just look different.
You put your animals in your pen, like, or you organize them into your pen, because sometimes you can't fit them and you have to buy like a pen expansion.
Yeah, that's true, right? Because they're all, I mean, they're all like rectangles and squares,
Yes.
but you have to like cram them in there. Yep. So that they all fit, and especially if you're trying to breed them, because then more baby pigs will be born. Yeah. Anything else to say about that one?
No, not really.
Yeah, it's a good game. It's a surprisingly good game for what looks like a kid's game. All right, that's it.
What is your number?
My number 1. All right, I wonder if you can guess my number 1. Have you guessed the other 2? Maybe you did. My number 1 is a game that you played for the first time recently.
Really?
Yep. And that's a game called Hanamikoji. And this is a super simple game where you have 4 actions. But what you're supposed to try to do is there's these geishas that are in the center of the table, and you're trying to influence these geishas to come over to your restaurant or your pub,
Show
bar, or whatever, your show, so that they perform at your show. Like they all have like guitars and whatever. Like
because you give them the gifts.
Right. So
to
what you
get them over to you.
Right. So then everybody has like 4 action tiles, and you have to do each action tile. But the order that you do them is up to you. But each player has to do the exact same actions. And the actions are like, give your opponent 2 cards, and then you keep 2 cards. Or
like set out like 3 cards. The opponent can take one, and you take the other 2.
Yep. So you're giving them and taking them on those actions, and then the other actions are you can take 2 cards out of the game, like so they don't count for the scoring.
Or you can save one.
You can save one until the end, like a hidden one, and that's it. So then you're trying to influence these geishas in this line, and the first person to 11 points.
Or to have like more
I think
tokens.
it's 4 or 5, like whatever the number is, to have influence to your side and wins. And sometimes it takes a couple of rounds to that. And when there are multiple rounds, the influence markers stay in the same places.
Yes.
So that can make it more tricky. But yeah, it's a really simple game, but it's also like you really got to think about what you're giving your opponent versus what you're giving yourself.
And what they possibly could have.
Right, in their hands. Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, that's Hanamikoji. That's my number 1, and it's gotten a lot of plays around here.
My number 1 is the Harry Potter deck building game.
Hogwarts Battle.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's a pretty fun game, and as we said, it's a deck building game where it's a co-op game where you have to defeat enemies all the way up to the boss, and you get the cards, and there's lightning bolts that'll hit them, which you have to and it's a campaign game, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
So where the enemy deck evolves and gets better and better.
Right. You're essentially playing through the book series, right?
Yes.
So book 1 or game 1 is pretty simple, right?
Yes,
the enemies are pretty easy to defeat. It kind of just teaches you how to play the game. And then as you play through each book,
it gets harder and harder.
Different characters get added to the enemy decks, but then also different allies get added to the people's decks. Yeah, right.
And then obviously then you have to fight the bosses, which are obviously harder than all the other ones.
Right. Yeah, and that's what you have to defeat the main bosses to pass the game and move on to the next level. Yeah. Yeah, that's really fun. All right. Good. Cool.
Yep.
That was our top 3. I think some solid games in there. Also that start with the letter H, excuse me. And I guess that's it. Next time you see us, we'll be doing
The Eyes.
The Eyes.
Incredible Eyes.
I think there probably are some incredible games that start with I. So yeah, all right. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Everybody.
Honestly, I feel like every time we fail, the more energized I get.
Fail. Oh, then I'm gonna fail probably a few more times.